Some Terms of Thought in Modern Philosophy. Essay number 3. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Some Terms of Thought in Modern Philosophy. 5 Essays by George Santayana. Essay number 3. Revolutions in Science. Some comments on the theory of relativity and the new physics. Since the beginning of the 20th century, science has gained notably in expertness and lost notably in authority. We are bombarded with inventions, but if we ask the inventors what they have learned of the depths of nature, which somehow they have probed with such astonishing success, their faces remain blank. They may be chewing gum, or they may tell us that if an airplane could only fly fast enough, it would get home before it starts. Or they may urge us to come with them into a dark room to hold hands and to commune with the dear departed. Practically, there may be no harm in such a division of labor, the inventors doing the work and the professors the talking. The experts may themselves be inexpert in verbal expression, or content with stock phrases, or profoundly skeptical, or too busy to think. Nevertheless, skill and understanding are at their best when they go together and adorn the same mind. Modern science, until lately, had realized this ideal. It was an extension of common perception and common sense. We could trust it implicitly, as we do a map or a calendar. It was not true for us merely in the argumentative or visionary sense, as are religion and philosophy. Geography went hand in hand with travel, Copernican astronomy with circumnavigation of the globe, and even the theory of evolution and the historical sciences in the 19th century were continuous with liberal reform. People saw in the past, as they then learned to conceive it, simply an extension of those transformations which they were witnessing in the present. They could think they knew the world as a man knows his native town or the contents of his chest of drawers. Nature was our home, and science was our home knowledge. For it is not intrinsic clearness or coherence that make ideas persuasive, but connection with action, or with some voluminous inner response, which is readiness to act. It is a sense of oncoming fate, a compulsion to do or suffer, that produces the illusion of perfect knowledge. I call it illusion, although our contact with such things may be real, and our sensations and thoughts may be inevitable and honest, because, nevertheless, it is always an illusion to suppose that our images are the intrinsic qualities of things, or reproduce them exactly. The Ptolemaic system, for instance, was perfectly scientific. It was based on careful and prolonged observation, and on just reasoning. But it was modelled on an image, the spherical blue dome of the heavens, proper only to an observer on the earth, and not transferable to a universe which is diffuse, centreless, fluid, and perhaps infinite. When the imagination, for any reason, comes to be peopled with images of the latter sort, the modern, and especially the latest, astronomy becomes more persuasive. For although I suspect that even Einstein is an imperfect relativist, and retains Euclidean space and absolute time at the bottom of his calculations, and recovers them at the end, yet the effort to express the system of nature as it would appear from any station and to any sensorium seems to be eminently enlightening. Theory and practice in the latest science are still allied, otherwise neither of them would prosper as it does. But each has taken a leap in its own direction. The distance between them has become greater than the naked eye can measure, and each of them in itself has become unintelligible. We roll and fly at dizzying speeds, and hear at incredible distances. At the same time, we imagine and calculate to incredible depths. The technique of science, like that of industry, has become a thing in itself. The one veils its object, which is nature, as the other defeats its purpose, which is happiness. Science often seems to be less the study of things than the study of science. It is now more scholastic than philosophy ever was. We are invited to conceive organisms within organisms, so minute, so free, and so dynamic, that the heart of matter seems to explode into an endless discharge of fireworks, or a mathematical nightmare realized in 1,000 places at once, and become the substance of the world. What is even more remarkable, for the notion of infinite organization has been familiar to the learned at least since the time of Leibniz, the theatre of science is transformed no less than the actors and the play. The upright walls of space, the steady tread of time, begin to fail us. They bend now so obligingly to our perspectives that we no longer seem to travel through them, but to carry them with us, shooting them out or weaving them about us according to some native fatality which is left unexplained. We seem to have reverted in some sense from Copernicus to Ptolemy, except that the centre is now occupied, not by the solid earth, but by any geometrical point chosen for the origin of calculation. Time, too, is not measured by the sun or stars, but by any clock, that is, any recurrent rhythm taken as a standard of comparison. It would seem that the existence and energy of each chosen centre, as well as its career and encounters, hang on the colloquial existence of other centres of force, among which it must wend its way. Yet the only witness to their presence is the only known property of their subsistence, is their radioactivity, or the physical light which they shed. Light, in its physical being, is accordingly the measure of all things in this new philosophy. And if we ask ourselves why this element should have been preferred, the answer is not far to seek. Light is the only medium through which very remote or very minute particles of matter can be revealed to science. Whatever the nature of things may be intrinsically, science must accordingly express the universe in terms of light. These reforms have come from within. They are triumphs of method. We make an evident advance in logic, and in that parsimony which is dear to philosophers, though not to nature, if we refuse to assign given terms and relations to any prior medium, such as absolute time or space, which cannot be given with them. Observable spaces and times, like the facts observed in them, are given separately and in a desultory fashion. Initially, then, there are as many spaces and times as there are observers, or rather observations. These are the specious times and spaces of dreams, of sensuous life, and of romantic biography. Each is centered here and now, and stretched outward, forward, and back, as far as imagination has the strength to project it. Then, when objects and events have been posited as self-existent, and when a clock and a system of coordinates have been established for measuring them, a single mathematical space and time may be deployed about them, conceived to contain all things, and to supply them with their respective places and dates. This gives us the cosmos of classical physics. But this system involves the uncritical notion of light and matter travelling through media previously existing, and being carried down, like a boat drifting downstream, by a flowing time which has a pace of its own, and imposes it on all existence. In reality, each clock and each landscape is self-centered and initially absolute. Its time and space are irrelevant to those of any other landscape or clock, unless the objects or events revealed there, being posited as self-existent, actually coincide with those revealed also in another landscape, or dated by another clock. It is only by travelling along its own path at its own rate that experience or light can ever reach a point lying on another path also, so that two observations and two measures may coincide at their ultimate terms, their starting points or their ends. Positions are therefore not independent